ASC 330 Inventory Training, Section 5 of 6, Journal Entries, Manufacturing Flow, and Physical Counts. Welcome to this explainer. This is where we get to translate all those abstract ASC 330 inventory rules directly into the actual language of business. We're talking exact journal entries. Today we are tracking exactly how inventory moves through a company's financial records, step by step, making sure the numbers on your screen perfectly match the physical reality on the warehouse floor. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to dive right into this physical to financial life cycle, starting with simple merchandising rules and entries, moving into a complete manufacturing inventory cycle, touching on write-downs and write-offs, and finally finishing up with crucial physical counts and investigations.
Section 1. Merchandising Rules and Entries, Translating Purchases and Sales.
So we'll begin with merchandise companies, businesses that just buy a finished product and simply sell it. It sounds super easy, right? But watch out, because there's a huge trap here. When you're purchasing goods, you absolutely must capitalize freight in. Expensing it as shipping is literally one of the most common yet completely avoidable period close errors we see. Why? Because ASC 330 strictly dictates that your inventory cost includes everything required to get that asset ready for sale. If you pay a trucker to haul a pallet to your warehouse, that trucking fee isn't just an operating expense. It literally adds value to your asset.
Now moving on to a really strict rule that catches folks off guard. Every single sale requires exactly 2 separate journal entries. You'd honestly be amazed at how often one gets totally forgotten, especially in manual systems. The first entry is a breeze: debit cash or accounts receivable, and credit revenue. Easy. But the second entry, that is where the real magic happens. You absolutely have to debit cost of goods sold and credit inventory. Missing that second entry? Honestly, it's a cardinal sin in accounting. Without a COGS entry, your inventory and profit are left dangerously overstated. It artificially inflates your profit and leaves your balance sheet completely disconnected from physical reality. Think about it. If you recognize the revenue but leave the asset just sitting on your books, your gross margin looks incredible, but it's totally fake. You're basically telling stakeholders you made money out of thin air without consuming any assets. No way! Both entries are absolutely required, simultaneously, every single time a sale happens.
All right, let's look at Section 2. The manufacturing inventory cycle, the 100 chairs worked example.
So unlike a merchandiser, a manufacturer has to build things from scratch, which definitely builds in some complexity. Let's look at a continuous flow of 100 chairs. This beautifully illustrates our input costs for a production run. To get our total cost, we combine our direct materials, so that's $4,000 for wood and $1,500 for fabric, with $2,500 in assembly wages for our direct labor. Finally, we allocate our manufacturing overhead, things like factory rent, adding another $2,000. It is a highly structured process, resulting in a fully loaded capitalized cost of $10,000, or exactly $100 per chair.
Now we have to track those specific costs through a connected chronological flow. Think of these 5 steps as giant buckets. When we buy the wood and fabric, it just sits in the raw materials bucket. Then someone on the factory floor requisitions it, right? So we do a journal entry to move it out of raw materials and into the work in process or WIP bucket. In step 3, we literally pour our labor and overhead costs into that exact same WIP bucket. Once the chairs are actually built in step 4, we empty the WIP bucket into finished goods. And finally, the best part, when a customer buys them, out of finished goods they go, straight into cost of goods sold.
So, the crucial point here is that when we sell, say, 60 of those chairs at $180 a pop, the financial result perfectly mirrors the physical reality. We hit $10,800 in revenue. And because we did all that hard work earlier to determine our cost is exactly $100 per chair, our COGS entry is cleanly calculated as $6,000. That leaves a gross profit of $4,800. It really is a beautifully balanced system. The remaining 40 chairs in the warehouse? They're correctly valued on the balance sheet at their $4,000 unit cost, just waiting for the next customer. Make sense?
Moving right along to Section 3, write-downs and write-offs, recognizing value loss.
Okay, so in a perfect world, inventory holds its value safely in a warehouse until sold. But, the real world is pretty messy. What happens when inventory loses value or just goes completely missing? Products become obsolete, maybe a forklift destroys a pallet, things happen. Depending on your specific scenario, you must apply one of these 4 mechanical entries. If inventory just loses some value, you smoothly adjust your assets with a write-down, either directly to net realizable value or via a reserve method if you anticipate regular losses. But if a product is entirely ruined, you have to perform a full write-off, totally removing its value from the books.
And that brings us to Section 4, Physical Counts and Investigations, the ultimate reality check.
To actually know what's lost or damaged, we must perform the ultimate reality check. Because listen, you can have the most elegant journal entries in the world, but if the boxes aren't actually on the shelves, your financials are fiction. You generally choose between two methods. The first is a full physical count. This is a comprehensive but highly disruptive process where the warehouse literally shuts down at year-end to count everything. Or you can use cycle counting. This is a fantastic modern alternative where you count small portions of your warehouse on a rolling schedule. The best part? Operations continue entirely uninterrupted.
Now, whichever method you use, discrepancies are basically inevitable. You will inevitably find overages, where you have extra physical goods compared to your records, or shortages, where items are just missing. While it's definitely frustrating, the golden rule here is pretty simple. The physical count is king. Your accounting records absolutely must be adjusted to match what actually exists in reality. But I want you to listen closely to this final, non-negotiable rule. All significant discrepancies must be investigated before adjusting entries are posted. Blindly posting an adjusting entry is completely unacceptable. If you find a massive discrepancy and just shrug and post a journal entry to COGS to make the system balance, no. A massive shortage could indicate actual theft, while a large overage could be a duplicate receiving error. You absolutely have to understand the root cause before you even think about posting that entry.
Which leaves us with this final thought. If you don't investigate the root cause of an inventory discrepancy, are you truly managing your business or just blindly balancing the books? I'll leave you with this to consider. If you skip the investigation just to make the numbers match, are you actually controlling your operations or simply pushing paper? Accounting is so much more than making debits equal credits. It's about accurately reflecting the true operational reality of the business. Every single journal entry tells a story, and it's our job to ensure that story is undeniably true. Thank you for joining me for this explanation on the financial mechanics of inventory. I hope you walk away with a crystal clear understanding of how these critical entries function. Until next time, keep digging into those numbers.